Somewhere right now, a 34-year-old is waking up at 6:15 a.m. He hits snooze once, then twice. Then he gets up anyway, because he has to. He makes decent money, more than his parents ever did. He drives a reasonable car, lives in a reasonable apartment, and by every external measure, he is doing fine. But here's the thing he cannot shake. No matter how many hours he works, no matter how many promotions he gets, the number in his bank account never seems to grow fast enough. It grows, then it shrinks, then it grows again. And every month, he is back at zero, waiting for the next paycheck to land so he can start the cycle again. He is not broke. He is trapped. And the uncomfortable truth is this. He is not trapped because he is doing something wrong. He is trapped because he is doing exactly what he was taught to do. Work hard, get paid, spend, repeat. What nobody told him, what nobody told most of us, is that there are two completely different ways to make money in the world. And most people only ever use one of them their entire lives. Let us talk about how money actually moves. When you go to work, you are selling something. Most people think they are selling their skills, their expertise, their value. And they are. But more fundamentally, they are selling their time. Time for money. That is a trade. And on the surface, that sounds completely reasonable. Fair, even. You show up, you contribute, you get compensated. Perfectly logical. But here's the crack in that logic. Time is the one thing you cannot manufacture more of. You get 24 hours a day. A hedge fund manager gets 24 hours a day. A kindergarten teacher gets 24 hours a day. The supply is identical and completely fixed. So, when your income is directly tied to your time, you have created a ceiling for yourself. A hard mathematical ceiling. There are only so many hours you can sell. And the moment you stop selling them, whether you want or not, whether through illness, burnout, or eventually old age, the income stops. Economists call this active income. You might call it a job. Either way, the structure is the same. Now contrast that with something else entirely. There's a man named Warren Buffett who earned his first dollar in the 1940s. He is now in his 90s. And here's the part that matters. He has not worked for a paycheck in decades. Not because he retired in the traditional sense, but because at some point, decades ago, his money started doing his working for him. In 2023 alone, Berkshire Hathaway received roughly $6 billion in dividends, money paid to them simply for owning shares in other companies. Nobody clocked in. Nobody filed a report. The money arrived because ownership, not labor, was doing the generating. That is, passive income. And the difference between those two systems is not motivational. It is mechanical. Now, here is where most conversations about this topic go off the rails. The internet has turned passive income into a fantasy product, a lifestyle brand. You've seen the thumbnails, the laptop on the beach, the guy who made $10,000 while sleeping. And because of that packaging, most serious people tune out completely. That is a mistake, because the underlying concept is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It is centuries old. It is how generational wealth actually works. And it is almost embarrassingly straightforward once you strip away the noise. The core idea is this. Assets generate income, not people. Assets. An asset is anything that puts money into your pocket without requiring you to be physically present to make it happen. A rental property, a dividend-paying stock, a business you own but do not run, a loan you have extended that pays you interest, a song you wrote in 2008 that still earns royalties every time it plays. Assets work while you sleep. Assets work when you are sick. Assets work when you are on vacation. And unlike you, assets do not burn out, do not ask for a raise, and do not call in sick on Fridays. The uncomfortable math is this. If you own zero assets, your financial life is entirely dependent on your continued physical participation. You are, financially speaking, one bad diagnosis away from the whole thing collapsing. And if you look around, you will notice that most people own very few assets. They own liabilities dressed up to look like assets. A car, a depreciating piece of machinery they financed. A house with a mortgage so large that the interest payments alone make the bank the primary beneficiary of their home ownership. The bank owns an asset. They own a liability. So, how does the transition actually happen? How do you go from trading time for money to having money generate money? It starts with something deeply unsexy. A gap? Specifically, the gap between what you earn and what you spend. In finance, this is called your savings rate, and it is arguably the single most important number in your financial life. More important than your salary. More important than the stock you picked or the crypto you bought or the side hustle you launched. Here is why. If you earn $5,000 a month and spend $4,900, your savings rate is 2%. You have almost nothing to deploy, nothing to invest, nothing to convert from liability to asset. You are running in place. But if you earn $5,000 and spend $3,500, your savings rate is 30%. Now you have $1,500 a month to redirect, to build, to put to work. And this is where compounding enters the picture. Compounding is a mechanism by which money makes more money, which makes more money, which makes more money, across time. Albert Einstein allegedly called it the eighth wonder of the world. He may or may not have actually said that, but whoever did was not wrong. Here's a math strip bear. If you invest $500 a month starting at age 25, and you earn an average annual return of 8%, by age 65, you'll have accumulated roughly $1.7 million. The total amount you personally contributed out of pocket? About $240,000. The other $1.46 million was generated by the money itself, growing on top of itself year after year, without you lifting a finger. Now run the same calculation starting at age 35 instead of 25. Same monthly investment, same return, same retirement date. You end up with roughly $745,000. Less than half. 10 years of delay costs you almost $1 million. Not because of bad decisions, not because of a market crash, simply because the compounding machine had less time to run. That is not a motivational statistic. That is physics applied to money. Now let us zoom out and sit with the larger discomfort here. Most people intellectually understand this. The concept of compound interest is not a secret. It is taught in schools. It is written about endlessly. And yet the overwhelming majority of working adults in developed countries carry consumer debt, save almost nothing, and approach retirement with far less than they need. Why? Because understanding something and structuring your life around it are two entirely different problems. The financial system you live inside is not neutral. It is not passively waiting for you to build wealth. It is actively designed to convert your income into someone else's assets. Every credit card with an 18% interest rate is doing that. Every car lease, every buy now pay later scheme, which has exploded in popularity over the last 5 years, hitting $77 billion in transaction volume in the U.S. alone in 2023. These are not consumer conveniences. They are asset transfer mechanisms. They take money out of your pocket and put it into the pocket of an entity that already has substantial assets, which then uses that money to generate more income, which compounds, which widens a gap. The people at the top of the wealth distribution are not, in most cases, dramatically smarter than everyone else. They are operating inside a different system. They have more assets. Those assets generate income. That income buys more assets. The cycle accelerates. It is not genius. It is structure. Here is where it gets genuinely complicated, and where the conversation usually gets uncomfortable. Building the asset side of your life requires you to prioritize the future over the present, consistently, in a world that is architected at enormous expense and sophistication, to make the present feel more urgent than it actually is. Every advertisement you see is making an argument for spending now. Every limited time offer is a psychological manipulation designed to override your long-term thinking. Every influencer living an aspirational lifestyle on camera is, whether intentionally or not, making the case that the present moment is worth more than the future one. And here's the irony. The people who most need to build assets, the people with the smallest financial buffers, the least job security, the fewest safety nets, are the ones most aggressively marketed to buy the industries that profit from their consumption. The gap widens not because of talent or effort or even luck. It widens because of information asymmetry, structural incentives, and the simple fact that it is very hard to think about decade-long compounding when you are anxious about this month's rent. None of that makes it impossible. It makes it harder than the beach laptop crowd will ever acknowledge. So where does that leave you? The framework is not complicated. Spend less than you earn. Redirect the gap into assets. Let time and compounding do the heavy lifting. Repeat until the passive income from your assets covers your expenses, at which point you have, mathematically, achieved what most people spend a lifetime chasing. Freedom from mandatory labor. Simple, but not easy. And here's a question that does not have a clean answer. We have built an entire civilization around the idea that people should work, that labor is not just an economic necessity, but a moral virtue. Cultures around the world, East and West, rich and poor, frame hard work as inherently noble, and rest, or income without labor, as somehow suspect. So what happens when the math says the most rational thing you can do is build a life where you no longer have to work? Where the goal of decades of effort is to make your own labor optional. Does that feel like freedom? Or does it feel like an identity crisis waiting to happen? Because the uncomfortable truth, the one that sits underneath all of this, is that most people have never seriously asked themselves what they would do if they did not have to work for money. They assume they want that freedom. They have never tested the assumption. The money part, as it turns out, might be the easier problem.